Welcome to Age of Empires, Canada Edition, where you win by being the world's most polite economic hostage. You mine the gold, you chop the wood, and ship it off, only to buy it back as a premium finished product, at a markup of course. And if that ever stops, if the US decides they don't need you anymore, you're left with nothing. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the most genius economic plan, right? Now, in my first year of university, I played Age of Empires daily. Come to think of it, that's probably why I almost failed. But if I played like this, handing my resources to my opponent instead of building my own economy, I'd never win. I'd never build an empire. I'd be stuck as a colony no matter how advanced my research supposedly got. For generations, Canada's economy wasn't built. It was extracted. 70% of Canada's exports are raw resources to the US. We call it trade. But let's be real. We've been a resource colony, not an economic powerhouse. In the US, well, 80% of their exports are manufactured goods. We are the lumberjacks selling logs while they build the mansion. And they've made sure it stays like that. In fact, they've been happy to keep it like that. Henry Kissinger once said, "It may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal." We spent decades playing the loyal trade partner, trusting that surely the US wouldn't turn on us, and yet, here we are.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
I want to start by condemning, without equivocation, the unjustified and unprovoked tariffs that President Trump has now announced against our auto sector.
We didn't start this trade war. The US administration did. And they can reverse course.
So now Canada has two choices. Keep whining like an abandoned sidekick, or B, finally level up and build an economy that trades with the US but doesn't rely on them. Because this is not just about tariffs. This is about control. And a country that relies on another for its prosperity is a country that can be controlled. But how did Canada become the world's most passive economy? You see, Canada was not built for Canadians. It was built as a money machine. First, it was for Britain. Then, post-World War II, the US became our economic overlords. And why not? The Americans were richer, bigger, and industrialized. They needed oil. Canada sent it over. They needed timber. Done. Minerals, water, cheap hydro, not a problem. And in return, we get economic scraps and a special relationship. You see, this whole ship raw goods, buy back finished products thing, it's not a new problem. It is literally how colonies have always worked. And Canada never quite grew out of it. Fur, ship it to Europe. Lumber, sell it to the Americans. Oil, process it elsewhere and buy it back. You see, by 1950, 75% of Canadian trade was with the US. Well, Canada was not an economy. Canada is America's supply closet. And the worst part? Oh, we embraced it. At first, it made sense. Big neighbor, easy market access. Why go through the pain of building manufacturing when the US was happy to do it? It's a relationship where we get a pat on the head and maybe some decent trade terms. That is, until it's inconvenient for them. why build our own industries when the US can do it for us? You see, every prime minister since Pierre Trudeau has promised to diversify the economy.
Watching economics, nor the Americans, the two most powerful economies.
Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we must fundamentally reimagine our economy.
In that, we need to become strong, self-reliant, sovereign, so that we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to the Americans.
The current ones are promising the same thing too. But on the flip side, they've all doubled down on selling raw materials. You see, Canada has kept playing the same old game. Dig, cut, export, repeat. But here's the reality. 70% of our exports are raw materials. 64% of our trade is still tied to the US. And when the US decides to slap tariffs on Canada, we panic. Because we never built an economy that could actually function without them. It's like a smoker saying, I'm gonna quit this time. Today is it. This is the last one. Right after this pack. So what happens when you structure your economy around one customer and that customer decides they don't need you anymore? Tariffs are not the cause of our problems. They are a symptom. The real issue, we structured our entire economy around one customer, the US. So when that customer decides to play hardball, we have no leverage. And every single time our politicians look shocked. America has put unjustified tariffs. Excuse me, did you just find out fire is hot? Really? You trusted a country whose goal is building an empire to put Canada first? Sorry. You trusted a neighbor who overthrows entire governments by breakfast for economic advantage to play fair with trade? Let's take South Korea. In the 1950s, South Korea was basically broke. They could have stayed like that. But instead they made a choice. Instead of shipping raw materials, they built Samsung, Hyundai, Kia, LG. Instead of relying on the US, they created their own industries. Today, their exports are mostly technology, not raw goods. Samsung's profit in 2023 was $11.62 billion. Suncor was $6.1 billion. You do the math. South Korea turned sand into semiconductors. India, China, Germany, Singapore, Taiwan, they have all developed their economies beyond raw resources. And whether you agree with how they did it or what they did, they are thriving for it. Meanwhile, Canada is still stuck in 1850 shipping trees and oil while others build empires. We led the world before with BlackBerry. For some reason, we let that slip away. But the thing is, we can lead the world again. But the time to step up is now. See, every time the US slaps tariffs on Canada, Canadian politicians come out to the media shocked. This is like a guy who keeps touching a hot stove and wondering why his hand gets hurt. So here's the question. Will the next generation of leaders actually do something about it? Mark Carney says Canada should be a clean energy superpower. Great. Pierre Poilievre wants us to be a tech hub. Wonderful. And with the recently announced election, they're both making promises, talking big. Well, sirs, it is time to deliver. Whichever one of you wins this election in April, it's time to nut up. Until then, it's just a TED Talk fantasy. See, we don't need more speeches. We don't need more, we should diversify headlines. We need actual industries being built. Factories, infrastructure, innovation, and we need it now. We can't be caught with our pants down again, scrambling to trade with Asia or Europe because the US decided to tariff us and they decided, well, they don't need us. See, politicians love to promise economic change. Yes, we can. Anybody remember that? And then they do nothing. You see, this can't happen this time. If we don't push for it, nobody will. This crisis isn't a threat. This is Canada's last wake-up call. Because history shows we only innovate when our back is against the wall. Well, Canada, your back is against the wall and it's time to start swinging. I'm not saying this will be easy. Breaking free never is. Building a real economy, well, it's hard. It takes sacrifice. It takes time. It means demanding more from ourselves and holding our leaders' feet to the fire, holding them accountable regardless of who the Prime Minister is. And if other countries can actually grow and diversify their economies, so can Canada. But how do we actually fix this? Stop selling ourselves short. We have talent in AI, biotech, clean energy, tech. Instead of selling raw resources, we should be creating and exporting finished products. Slap a 20% tariff on unprocessed timber. Force companies to build mills here. We can do it too, you know. Bring business to Canada. Let's invest in advanced manufacturing. If Germany and South Korea can build high-end manufacturing, so can we. We need to produce high-value goods, not just raw materials. It's time to build relationships with Europe, Asia, and emerging markets. Less dependency means more freedom. So don't you go depending on US only, or on Europe only, or on Japan only, or on Asia only. Diversify. Actually, diversify your trade. Don't let any one person control it all. And we need to start acting like an independent nation. You see, other countries take risks. We seem to wait for the US to save us. Well, enough. It's time we start making bold economic moves. It's time for Canada to develop its own industries. Stop simply extracting and exporting and then talking about diversifying, but continuing to extract and export. See, I lost a lot of games in Age of Empires before I started winning, but the ones I won, well, they had one thing in common. I stopped being a colony. I stopped simply shipping my resources to my opponents. I built my kingdom. I developed my society. I built my economy. That's how I won. That's how I protected myself. You see, tariffs are scary and they will threaten us. But only as long as Canada keeps handing the reins to the United States. So here's the real question. Does Canada finally build an economy worthy of a sovereign nation? Or does Canada keep playing the colony role until there's nothing left to trade? See, in Age of Empires and in life, success isn't about reacting. It's about planning ahead. In the game, if you don't build your economy early, you most certainly will lose. In life, it's the same. You need to build your foundation. Canada has neglected that. See, the only difference is, in life, there is no restart button. You simply keep moving forward. You can change the path. So Canada, history is watching. A colony or a sovereign nation? What will it be?